This is Join Us in France, episode 25. Hello, I'm Annie.
And I'm Elise.
And we welcome you to the Join Us in France travel podcast. Elise is a professional tour guide, art historian, and a really good storyteller.
Yes, indeed.
But on today's show, the stories are going to be told by somebody different. We have invited a wonderful lady called Laura K. Lawless to talk to us about an adventure she had around France. She went around traveling the 6 corners of the Hexagon, is what she called it. Do you want to tell us what that means?
Well, France is, as she does mention when she starts talking about it, France is basically theoretically in the shape of a hexagon, which I think most people know is a 6-sided form. And it's referred to that way. For instance, if you watch the news with the weather forecast, they always start by saying, in the hexagon today, they're going to talk about what's going on in the hexagon. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that on basically, if you take a look at the shape of France, you have what are almost 3 sides that are coastline, which is the Mediterranean side, which is basically a curve but kind of going on an angle northeast. And then you have the entire western side, which comes to a very big point out at the extreme end of the region called Brittany.
Yeah.
And so it does have a vague resemblance to
like
a hexagon.
that, doesn't it?
And it is the way people talk about it. So if they talk about the weather, they talk about what's going on in the hexagon today. We've had this kind of a problem.
Dans l'Hexagone.
This is the hexagon.
Yeah, when French people say dans l'Hexagone, and they mean France.
They mean mainland France, as opposed to the outlying,
That's right.
out of what they call a dom-tom, out of territories.
Yeah. So Laura is somebody really interesting because she has been blogging about France for a very long time. For many years, she was the about.com guide, I think they call it. And now she's doing something different. She teaches French online. And her new site is called lawlessfrench.com. It's very fun. If you want to learn some French, it's a very good place to go. So let's say hello to Laura, and then we'll come back and listen to her adventures. Hello, Laura. Welcome to Join Us in France.
Hi, Annie.
Hi. Well, this is our first time doing an interview over Skype, so hopefully the internet gods will be good to us. So, Elise, this was a Skype recording that we did, and we hadn't done ever any Skype recording because the two of us, we just meet in the same room.
Right. We're really, really physically together.
Right. Which is a lot simpler. So the Skype conversation, it's well worth it because Laura is a wonderful person to talk to, but the sound quality isn't always even and whatever. So there were the first question I asked her, you couldn't make it out at all. It was all choppy. So the very first question I asked her is, what gave you the idea to go to the 6 corners of the hexagon? And let's hear what she has to say about that.
Okay.
Well, as you know, France is shaped roughly like its name is l'Hexagone, which means that it has 6 sides, which also means, obviously, that it has 6 corners. And I've always just been kind of fascinated by that, my husband as well. So we were talking about taking a trip, and we realized that we were going to be visiting corners. We were going to Perpignan, and then on another trip, we were going to Menton. And we thought, gosh, wouldn't it be neat to visit all 6 corners of the hexagon? And, then we just took off from there.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And where did you start?
Well, at the time, we were living in Hyères, which is in the Var, near Toulon.
Yeah.
And so if I can just backtrack a little bit, we were moving from Hyères to Menton, which is the southeast corner. What we realized was that once we moved out of our apartment in Hyères, it would make more sense to just put our stuff in there without paying rent. We would just have the storage fees, so we would save a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically went from Hyères to Menton, but the long way around. Instead of just going directly east, we went all the way around the 6 corners of the hexagon and then moved to Menton.
Wow. So
we basically drove north. Go ahead.
So are these corners of the hexagon that you decided on, or are they like geographically significant for some reason?
only in the sense that they're, like the northeastern corner is the northeasternmost point of France,
Okay.
but there's nothing there. In fact, that was our first corner, the northeastern corner up with it's the border with Germany, and we parked in a parking lot in this little teeny town, really nothing special at all, but there was a walkway along and we had our GPS. So we wanted to get to the exact corner, and so we walked down this path for about 10 minutes, and believe me, fisherman sitting there right at the corner. It was.
You cut out for a second. What was sitting there?
A fisherman.
Oh.
A German fisherman. Right at the corner. And he didn't speak a word of French or a word of English, so we couldn't even explain to him what we were doing there.
Excuse me, sir.
So, we just broke. Yeah. So we broke out our champagne and took our little video and a bunch of pictures, and he looked at us like we were completely insane. Either
that or alcoholics, right?
Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So that was. So there wasn't even a name to that place. You went by coordinates.
Yeah. I mean, I could find the name of the town, but it was a little teeny industrial town. There was some kind of factory there. But no, it's not anything that anyone would recognize or know. It's just an arbitrary point where France meets Germany.
Okay. So do you want to tell us about the second corner?
The second corner was up near the town of I think it's called Bray-Dunes. It's up at the Belgian border, north of Lille.
Okay.
Northwest of Lille. Yeah, it's called Bray-Dunes. So there's a huge beach there, very, very flat. So we parked in the town of Bray-Dunes, and then we just took our picnic stuff and just walked and walked and walked until we got to the Belgian border. Sat down, had our picnic there.
Okay, so that was the second corner, and then
the third corner is over in Bretagne. And same thing. We'd never been to Bretagne, so we drove all along that coast, and again we just found the spot, had a picnic, had a glass of champagne, and we always took videos and tons of pictures at each corner. So yeah, it was really funny.
So you didn't do any geocaching or anything like that?
I'm sorry, what?
Geocaching? Do you know what that is? Where people take...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I actually found out about that after. I wish I had known, because I would have done some, but I didn't know about it at the time.
Yeah, that would have been fun for you to hide something and let other people
Yeah, that
would
have been great. Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. So, Bretagne... That's Brittany. I
Yeah.
want to stop there because there's so much to see there. Did you visit other places around Bretagne?
Well, sure. Yeah, we stayed. Let's see. Let me look at the map to not say any bêtises. We stayed in. Well, we went to Dinard. Is that? Yeah, that's Bretagne already, right? Dinard, next to Saint-Malo.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
we stayed there one night, and then we drove just right along the coast, and we spent a night in Perros-Guirec.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
And we took the little tour of the islands. What is it called? The Sept Sœurs?
It might be.
I can't remember.
I didn't go to the islands.
Oh, okay.
I just
Yeah, they're just off the coast there. So.
Mm-hmm.
And just reminded me that it's the Côte de Granit Rose.
Oh, I went there as a kid.
Yeah.
It's been years. We were doing a bicycle tour of Brittany. And I remember
nice.
stopping there, and I remember that the port was beautiful, but I don't remember much else. It's been way too long.
We also took was it a steam train? We took a coal train ride there. A steam train. My husband became a little bit obsessed with little local trains on this trip. So there was a steam train that went from Perros-Guirec to, I'm not sure what town, but that was, so that was neat. So then we continued along the coast. We stopped in Roscoff. And then the place nearest the corner where we stayed was Morgat, which is on the peninsula of Crozon.
Okay.
Really, really beautiful area. Just lots of heather, gorgeous. It's got to be one of the most beautiful places in Bretagne, which is already a really beautiful area.
That's true. Did you encounter a lot of tourists? What time of the year were you there?
It was summer, but no, we didn't see that many tourists. We were a little bit off the beaten path, obviously.
Correct, yeah.
But no, I mean, we talked to a lot of locals, and we told them all what we were doing, and they all thought it was great that we were, everyone kept saying, gosh, you've seen more of France than most French people.
Exactly, you really have, because there's not a lot of us who take, 3.5 months to go explore. That's wonderful.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who do this sort of thing, but like the Chemin de Compostelle, they just walk around.
Right.
And they do see a lot of the country that way, but it's very slow. I mean, it takes a long, long time. Whereas you were driving from place to place, right?
Yes.
Right. You just walked to get to your remote corner.
Right. Right.
Well, that's great. That's great. So, do you think there are places of the 3 spots you've mentioned so far? Are there some that you think are must-sees for your average tourist? Probably not someone who's going to spend months.
Well, I mean, not the actual corners themselves necessarily, but certainly Lille is a very, very beautiful city, which is up near the second corner.
Right.
And near there is Bergues, which is the town where Bienvenue chez les Ch'tis was filmed.
Oh, a very
fun
show.
Yeah, so that was really neat to visit because you can actually go up in the tower and, they're all very proud of themselves. And it's a beautiful little town, so that was really nice.
Maybe we need to explain what Bienvenue chez les Ch'tis is. This is a movie. Yeah, probably our listeners don't know about this. This is a French movie that came out 3-4 years ago. Do you remember when?
I think a little more, because I think it came out just after I moved to France, so maybe 5 years ago.
Okay. And it was a huge success. The whole gist of the movie is it's a family. Okay, so the man works for the post office, which is a governmental job in France, and he wants to move. He wants to get a mutation. How do you say that in English? Mutation.
Transfer.
Transfer. Exactly. He wants to get transferred to a beach town. He's already in the south, but he wants to get transferred to a beach town, and to get transferred, he lies.
Right.
I won't go into the details, but he lies, and and he's found out, and to punish him, his superiors sent him to the very north of France. And you have to understand that in France, northern France has this. Well, in southern France, northern France has this reputation for being cold and no place you would ever want to go. I don't. Maybe I'm characterizing it wrong, but that's how I think about it. And so, so this man he's sent way up north, and his wife refuses to go. So he goes by himself, and he's extremely surprised how wonderful the people are up there.
Yeah.
And the whole movie is just heartwarming, and you get to hear a lot of the northern dialect called Ch'ti. That's what they speak. And Ch'ti is very different. I mean, for a French speaker, you're like, oh, what was that? It's like a different language. And it was very fun. And when the movie came out, a lot of kids starting all of a sudden using Ch'ti expressions, and it was the hip thing to do,
Right.
So it was a great movie. And if your French is good enough, you should try to see it. I think it would be pretty rough on somebody who knows minimal French, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. You would need subtitles. I mean, even for native French speakers, the Ch'ti itself was, I've been told, extremely difficult to understand.
Correct.
So subtitles are definitely helpful.
Yeah. Well, they did subtitle it for us French speakers. Those
parts. Oh, okay.
Yeah, those parts we didn't know. And the fun thing is some of the actors are really, really famous, and I had no idea they were from that area. You don't. I mean, they sound like regular French people normally. It's just when they start talking like that, we're like, what? It's really fun. It's a very fun show and very heartwarming. Anyway, great show. Sorry.
Yes.
That was the movie review part of the show today.
Yeah.
So isn't that interesting how they went around the whole country, Elise?
Yeah, it's actually quite an original idea, actually.
Yeah,
I've never, nobody in France, or as far as I know, in terms of tourism, thinks of visiting France in terms of 6 points.
Right,
I
right.
mean, they don't exist in the sense that they're nothing official and there is no route or anything. Most people will talk about going to a specific region or a specific city or seeing a specific castle.
It's really original, isn't it?
So it's a very original idea.
Yeah.
And of course, as she mentions, there are a couple of these places that they're just geographical points on a map. There is nothing there, you know.
Yeah.
So it was just
the fisherman was fun.
Yeah, the fisherman was fun. So it's her own personal kind of obsession, I guess.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And then in the segment we're going to hear about in just a minute, she talks about going to Alsace. Mm-hmm. And of course, we did a podcast. About it, and it's number 18. It's a really fun area, and you lived in that area.
Yes,
too.
I did. I spent a year actually living. I lived on the other side of the Vosges Mountains, on the wet side, and in order to escape the wet and to get to see the sun, I would every chance I got go over the Vosges Mountains, which are low. They're like the Adirondacks Mountains in the States.
Yeah.
And visit the Alsatian area and go to Strasbourg. And it is beside Strasbourg, which we did, of course, do in a podcast. The region is really very beautiful. It's very sunny.
Yeah.
Since the mountains collect all of the rain and the fog, the eastern side is very sunny. Lots of beautiful little villages that have old houses just that look like they came out of the Grimm's fairy tale because they're all that sort of German fairy tale style. Impeccably clean. Lots of wonderful vineyards around, good restaurants. And something that is special to that area is that all of the villages have stork nests because the stork is the symbol of Alsace, and they stay there on their migration route. And so originally the storks would make nests on the tops of people's houses, and I guess at some point it started bothering people in terms of electric lines and things. So they decided that the best thing to do was accommodate the storks by making artificial nesting places on tops of poles.
Oh, that's great.
So every single village has its stork poles.
Oh,
and
that's
they
great.
make this, and the same storks come back year after year, and you see the babies, and everything.
Oh, that's great.
Alsace is just absolutely beautiful. You have to get used to their little strange, slightly, Alsatian between, we can say a Germanic accent, but it's a very, very lovely.
It's very nice, yeah.
It really is.
And she also talks about Lille.
Yes.
Which I know you like a lot.
Yes, I like a lot, and I'm waiting. One day we will do our Lille podcast. Lille is for the north, which of course is there is, as you mentioned in talking about the movie and everything, there is this real attitude about the north. The north of France, which is basically a little bit colder and a little bit grayer and a little bit flatter. But Lille is a gorgeous, gorgeous city. It's a big university city. It has a lovely city center with an old history. It has a lot of culture, and it is, of course, very close to both the water because it's close to the English Channel and to Belgium. So it will definitely be a place that we will talk about in the near future.
That's great.
Okay, so the fourth corner is actually in the town of Hendaye, which is a very beautiful beach town.
Yes.
So that one was easy. We just parked right there in town. We just walked out on this jetty and had our picnic out there.
Yeah, even tourists have heard of that one.
Yeah. I think it's the only corner other than Menton. That's the only corner that is really a place where people go.
Yeah. That's a beautiful. So describe Hendaye a little bit for us.
Well, I don't know how much I can say. I just remember a really big beach. Read later that there's a castle there or something that's fairly well known, but we didn't visit that. We were actually staying at that point in the trip. We were staying in Saint-Jean-de-Luz.
Another very nice place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
beautiful town.
Yeah. That whole area of the Basque Country is just gorgeous. We'll have to do We'll have to do a specific podcast about that, or 2 or 3, I don't know. But it's just gorgeous. Lots to see. Very friendly people too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem with France. There's nowhere, there's nothing to see, nowhere to go. So the next point that she talks about is the Basque Country.
Yep.
That's a place we both love very much.
Yes, it's a place we both love very much.
Yeah. And are there places there that you like to visit particularly?
Oh, yes. I love the town of Bayonne.
Yeah.
Which is not quite on the coast, but it's not very far from the coast. I guess it's just, 15, 20 minutes, and you're actually on the coast. A lot of people like Biarritz, which is bigger and which has a lot of very monumental architecture. But I particularly love Bayonne and the land area, which is a huge pine forest that go up a little bit the coast from there. But of course, what we should mention is that, and then there's also Saint-Pierre-de-Port, which is the town inland, and Saint-Jean-de-Luz, which is on the coast.
Yeah.
This is Basque Country, and we mentioned she was talking about Brittany, and the Basque Country and Brittany, the two Bs, basically, are both regions that have maintained their own identity and kept their own languages, which is very, very specific in France. So the people who are Basque speak Basque, and they will all be bilingual. Yeah. And they have a very interesting cuisine, which is very nice. And the land is beautiful. It's goes into the Pyrenees and, of course, continues on the other side, on the Spanish side. But unlike the rest of the Pyrenees, which are high mountains, and then it gets drier as you get to the Mediterranean, one of the things about Basque Country is that it's very green because it does get a lot of rain.
Right.
It also gets a lot of sun, interestingly. It can be part of the warmest one of the warmest parts of the Hexagon, or it can be one of the wettest,
Yes.
But it's a gorgeous, gorgeous area to go to.
Yeah, it's very nice. They even have their own sport.
Yes.
La pelote basque,
Basque.
which is not played very much outside of that area, but it's a lovely place.
It's a wonderful place, and we will have to talk about it.
Yeah, we definitely will.
The fifth corner is the Perpignan.
Oh.
So it's actually, the nearest town is, it's called Collioure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, another touristy place.
Oh, yes. Very, very, very beautiful town.
Yeah,
so that's where we were staying. But we actually, we got in the car and we actually had to drive into Spain a little ways in order to find the corner, because this was really the most remote corner. We had to go into Spain, and then just based on our GPS readings, we found this little trail that led up the mountain, basically. So we followed that, and we got to this clearing up on the mountain. I don't know what it's used for, but so we had a spectacular view down the coast, all the way up toward, Béziers and all that.
Yeah.
So that's where we had our picnic there.
And usually from there, you can see both the ski slopes and the ocean. Well, you were there in the winter, but...
Yeah, no, we could see the Pyrenees, though.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember, again, as a young adult, skiing in those ski resorts up there. And you're skiing and you can see the Mediterranean. It's quite pleasant.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're down near Perpignan. Plenty of other things to see down there. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So how long did you take between each stop? How many other places did you visit?
Well, we stayed in 35 different places at least one night, ranging from 1 night to 2 weeks in each place.
Yeah, so you made some long stops.
Yes, we kind of, I don't know, it wasn't very scientific, but for a week to 10 days, stopping in just 1 or 2 nights in a place, and then we'd stay for... long stop was 2 weeks. That was up in Alsace. The other long stops were just a week. But that way we were able to, we traveled, and then we had a week, or in one case 2 weeks, to just kind of regroup and actually have a kitchen and be able to cook our own food. And then we traveled again, and then we stopped for a week, So that way it was, because otherwise, moving constantly like that is exhausting.
It is. It really is.
So by stopping a week, we were able to get to know a particular area really well.
Right.
and also, just catch our breath and, figure out the next phase.
Right. And this is important for people to realize who are coming to France on a whirlwind tour. Sometimes I see travel plans that to me sound exhausting. People will come out, they'll do London, Paris, Madrid, and maybe Rome in like 10 days.
Yeah.
Are you trying to kill yourself? This is supposed to be a vacation.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's just too much work to me. So yeah, you did it the right way. Unfortunately, not everybody can take the time, but that's really the right way to do it. And what sorts of hotels did you stay in? Because you probably didn't go to luxury hotels this whole time.
Oh, no. We stayed whenever we could, we stayed in bed and breakfasts.
Ah, very good.
Yeah. Yeah, because that way we also got to meet, local people, and, it's just nicer. Breakfast is included, when we stayed a week in different places, we rented apartments.
Oh.
Something similar. In Alsace, the place where we stayed for 2 weeks, it was actually a converted paper mill.
Oh, wow.
But it was this big, beautiful apartment in what used to be a paper mill. So, there was a pool, and it was just really beautiful, as peaceful as you could ever hope to see.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So then the last corner was Menton, which was our final destination.
That's right. That's where you were moving to. Okay. So can you tell us your impression of all these separate areas of France? Because they're all quite different from one another.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, I don't know. I mean,
the accents are different in all of these places.
Yeah, the accents are different. Not as much as I expected. I mean, we didn't have any trouble understanding people.
Right.
The way, like even in England, even though I'm a native English speaker, in England there are places where I can barely understand the language. I can barely tell that it's supposed to be English.
That's true.
And that didn't happen anywhere in France. I've met individuals who were difficult to understand, but it's usually because they speak very quietly or they mumble. It's not usually because of their accents.
Yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, in Alsace, I was there in Strasbourg, and we podcasted about this. I really wanted to hear an accent, a local accent, but I didn't. I'm sure there are some, but... And of course, the population of Alsace is half and half, natives, and the other half is people from somewhere else. And so obviously, your chances of meeting somebody with a strong accent is not that great. So as far as for visitors who just want to come and have a few days around the Menton area or around the Alsace area or Brittany or whatever, what are the highlights, do you think?
Okay, well, Menton itself is, I think, one of the loveliest towns in all of France. You can't go wrong visiting Menton. And near there's Nice, of course, which is a beautiful city with tons of museums and great restaurants, lots to do. There's a Greek villa in the town of Beausoleil, which is between Menton and Nice. That's really nice. It's got all these mosaic floors, and it's definitely worth visiting. There's the Ephrussi Gardens, which are in, I want to say, Cap d'Aille.
Okay.
Right around near Beausoleil. It's walking distance from the Greek villa. So there are, I think, 9 gardens. Cap Ferrat, excuse me. There are 9 gardens that are all themed differently. There's a traditional French garden. There's a Japanese garden. So they have a little month is the best month to see each garden at its best.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So there's actually there's a joint ticket for those two for the Ephrussi Gardens and the Greek villa, which is called Kerylos. So you get a discount if you visit both of them.
That sounds really good.
Yeah. So I don't know. Those are my highlights for the Menton area. But I mean, there's tons more. Of course, you're right across the border from Italy too. So from there you can see tons more stuff. Up in Alsace, everything. go everywhere and do everything. It's the most beautiful. If they didn't have cold winters, I could easily live there. But I'm extremely frileuse, so I can't live there.
Yeah.
But it's one of my very favorite places in the entire world. It's so colorful. The architecture is so charming.
Yeah.
The flowers everywhere. Fantastic wine.
No,
there's a Route des Vins which I highly recommend taking. Following.
So the Alsatian Route des Vins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize there was one there too. They probably one is in each region of France, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, pretty much. But my husband and I are particularly fond of Alsatian. We really liked that one. So, but yeah, I mean, Straat city, but all those towns there are just so lovely.
Yes. Yeah, I was very, very impressed. I only stayed one day, so I really haven't seen near as much as I need to.
Oh, that's tragic. No, you have to go back immediately.
I think we need to go back indeed. But it was so beautiful. I was really, really taken by everything I saw. I thought it was just really nice. The food's good, the wine's good, great place for vacation. And then Brittany. What did you like about Brittany?
Well, it's very it's a great place for being outdoors. It's unfortunate that it rains so much, of course.
Yes.
But the rain leads to I just remember these fields covered in heather all along the coast. The coastline is spectacular. Mm-hmm. It's very colorful. Of course, there's crêperies everywhere, so you can eat really good crepes.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly fond of cider, though, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, the Brittany area is very nice, but yeah, it rains a ton. Did you stop in Normandy at all?
Yeah, we stayed 2 nights in Rouen, which is actually where my husband and I met. So that was a must see again.
Wow. How romantic. You met in France. Woo.
Yeah, he's American too, but we met in France, yeah.
How did you manage that? Sorry, maybe I'm getting too personal.
No, it's okay. We were both students at Monterey Institute in California, and we were both part of an exchange program to a university in Rouen, actually Mont-Saint-Aignan, which is right next to Rouen. And so we met there rather than at Monterey Institute.
Oh, very nice, very nice. And he also speaks French?
No, yes, he speaks French, yes.
Okay, that's good. I really want to ask you about things that you think about France that are a little difficult for English speakers to deal with.
Well, I wouldn't say this is difficult necessarily, but bonjour to everybody. It's just not something that Americans necessarily do. Not that we are rude to people, but we, like if you go into a store, we might just say, we'll see a clerk or whatever and say, oh, excuse me, can you tell me where to find whatever? Mm-hmm. But we don't say hello first necessarily. Right. And in France, you have to do that. It's just the opening word to any transaction. And you've discussed this in another podcast. I mean, you even say it like when you're getting on a bus, when you walk into a waiting room.
Yep.
It's just something that you have to get used to. And once you do, it's really nice.
Yeah.
You realize that it's a lovely beginning to whatever you're doing.
Yep. I got surprised again today because I was waiting for my car to be done. So this is one of those car dealership big waiting rooms, right, with a few people in there. And I walk in and I don't say anything. Mm-hmm. And the next person who walked in said bonjour, and everybody responded bonjour. And I thought, oh, dang it, I forget to do it sometimes. Now, of course, I wasn't asking these people for any help or anything. We were just waiting for our cars.
Right.
But it's surprising places where French people will say bonjour.
Well, my favorite episode related to was my husband and I were at the préfecture to renew our carte de séjour. And
that's
there
like
was
a green card for everybody.
I'm sorry?
That's like a green card. I'm just explaining what it is.
Yeah, well, it's not as permanent as a green card, but yeah, it's permission to live here for a year.
Right.
So we were at the prefecture, and there was a problem with the line. I can't remember what it was. If the clerk realized that there were too many people and they wouldn't be able to get to them, before the window closed or whatever. But anyway, the clerk started, talking quite loudly to the people at the end of the line, saying, you're going to have to go away and come back tomorrow. And one of the people in line said, bonjour déjà. And then he, answered her.
Yeah. Don't talk to me before you've said bonjour.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, it's a big deal here. So yes, that is a little bit startling to English-speaking visitors, and I think it's a fairly recent phenomenon because when I was
really?
Yeah, I when I was a kid, it wasn't like that. You could just say excuse me and start talking, or at least I don't remember that being a big deal. I think it's in the 80s and 90s that this habit developed. But there are some people who take it to extremes. I mean, they will just look at you really mean if you forget to say bonjour, which is really dumb, I think. Anyway, but the fact that you speak French and you're aware of all these things probably makes your life a lot easier.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. My husband English, he volunteers as an English teacher. That has just we're now living in the third place. We were in Hyères, and then we were in Menton. Now we're in Guadeloupe. And the fact that he gives these English classes is the reason that we have so many friends, because he just gives of himself, and it just he meets all these people that we wouldn't normally meet.
Right.
Normally we might have an encounter where we bump into somebody, strike up a conversation, but usually that's not the case. But because he has 100 students, people invite us over for dinner. He had tennis partners and all kinds of stuff that a typical person, American or Brit, maybe living in France, they probably wouldn't have that.
Did you get lost?
A couple times, yeah. Even with the GPS isn't always right. I don't know if you've ever used a GPS, but yeah, they have some problems. So we got lost a few times.
Right.
Once, it was late and we were heading for, our chambre d'hôte, and it sent us up this logging trail. It was, we just kept going, and, it clearly said on the GPS that we were going the right way, but the trail kept getting narrower and narrower, and it was getting dark. And
oh, wow.
We drove like 2 hours. But sometimes places are like that. They're that remote, so you just don't know.
Yeah, there are places where, people put houses in pretty remote places anywhere in America and in France too. So it's possible, I guess, if you're staying at a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
Do you recommend bed and breakfast in France? Are they pretty good?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They're hotels, aside from the fact that they're usually really impersonal, you just don't actually talk to anybody there other than the clerk. But in a bed and breakfast, you deal right with the owner. You usually have breakfast with other guests, so you just have so much more interaction with people, and it's so much more human. It's so much more enjoyable like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never stayed at a bed and breakfast in France, actually, but whenever we go abroad, that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because in France we have, we have family, we have friends, we go to hotels, but not that often, really.
Yeah.
So, but it's, I think it's a lovely way to travel.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And what car did you drive? I'm just curious. What somebody who goes on a trek like that, what car do they drive?
I'll have to ask my husband. I don't remember.
Was it a French car?
Yeah. We rented a car, an Opel Corsica.
Ah, yes, I've driven one of those.
Yeah, so we had the back just stuffed full with, a cooler. We even brought a fan with us, and it was a good thing because one place we stayed didn't have a fan. And filled it up. Ton of wine tasting. By the time we got to Menton, we had 70 bottles of wine in the car. And that doesn't even include what we drank along the way.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So yeah, but we had warm clothes because we just didn't know what it was going to be like, So we just had that thing packed full.
Yeah.
And we used everything in it at some point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you do? Who does most of the driving?
He did all the driving.
He did all the driving.
Yeah, I can't drive. I can't drive a stick shift.
Oh.
So he had to do all the driving. Yeah.
That makes it hard in France, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can find rental cars in Paris maybe, but they didn't mind driving. And we tried to plan it so that, I mean, we could have done the trip in like 2 weeks. If we just wanted to rush around and see the corners, we could have done it much more quickly. But we wanted to stop and see lots of stuff along the way.
Yeah.
So on a normal day, we only drove 4 or 5 hours from one, chambre d'hôte to the next.
Yeah, which is already quite a bit for France.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, yeah.
France is a small country. You could drive across the whole country in maybe 10 hours.
Yeah, but I mean, we were stopping along the way, and we were doing detours. We had sort of several goals on this trip aside from visiting the corners. We wanted to see as many plus beaux villages and plus beaux détours as we could, so we did a lot of detours to fit them in.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plus beaux villages are really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to explain what that is? We haven't talked about it on the podcast. Maybe our listeners don't know what those are.
Well, they're both these labels that France gives out for they've made beauty in a town official. Yes. I don't know how else to put it. They're separate things. The plus beaux villages are limited to 2,000 inhabitants. So and there's an unlimited number. The town has to obviously have fewer than 2,000 people, and it has to meet certain criteria. To be a certain amount of tourist accommodation made, like they have to have a museum or something for tourists to do rather than just being a beautiful town that you go to and you can't do anything there. So we actually picked up a book, I forget where, but we actually picked up the book of the most beautiful villages, and it's got a nice little picture and a little description, and then a few restaurants and other interesting things to do in each town. Very helpful.
Yeah.
And then the plus beaux go ahead.
Well, they also have a good website for plus beaux village. The website is very helpful as well.
Yes, that's true. But we were on the road, so we couldn't necessarily look at that all the time. So
sure.
the book was nice to have.
Yeah.
And then we actually learned about the plus beaux détours on the trip when we were in the town of, I believe, which we stopped in just because it looked neat. But when we went to the tourist office, she told us that it was a plus beau détour. She gave us the book for that, and that's a much stricter label. It's limited to 100 towns, and they can have between 2,000 inhabitants. But like I said, it's only limited to 100 towns. So if a new town comes along that's just so beautiful it needs to be added to the list, something else has to be taken off. So the criteria are much stricter, whereas the plus beau village, there could be, 1,000. The woman at the tourist office was very proud of this. She made a point of explaining this to me, that it's limited to 100, you see, so.
They're even more selective.
Yes, exactly.
Which is, probably a good thing.
Yeah, and they're both great. I mean, and what's amazing to me is just the variety. I don't know exactly how many we visited. I have it written down somewhere. We must have been to at least 25 plus beaux villages just on this trip.
Mm-hmm.
And the variety, some were just so tiny and like we're I don't know, bustling, little tiny towns, but bustling, and I don't know. It's just, if you go to France and just do that, you'd see so incredible.
Yeah, it's true. The going through the plus beau village, of course you need a car, because most of these places you wouldn't be able to get to without a car. But
yes,
if you're comfortable driving in France, that is a very nice thing to do. Even Well, I don't know if you could do it from one city. If you could like pick a city, a big city like I don't know, Limoges, and then from there kind of branch off to do day trips to Plus Beau Village. I know a lot of people who live in France who do that, but I don't know if as a visitor if it would be. I think you just need to sleep in a different bed every night, which is a little bit difficult to do.
No, there are actually clumps of them. The Dordogne has, I don't know, 20 or something. So you can definitely, I mean, if you don't, you might have to drive an hour or so, but you can definitely see several from one place. There were days where we saw 3 or 4 on the same day. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what's nice about the map is because you can see exactly where they all are. Aha, I'm going to stay right here in the middle of these 8.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And then go visit 2 or 3 in a day.
Right.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, Plus Beau des Tours I had not heard of either. So, see, they need to.
Yeah, it's neat too. Yeah, we saw some really good stuff. Some good day tour as well.
Yeah. Well, and if the place can be a little bit bigger, that's good too because, I mean, anymore there's not that many places that are under 2,000 inhabitants. I mean, there's some, but.
No, what we did was we picnicked at least once a day. We only ate out maybe 15 times during that entire summer.
Wow.
Yeah, because what I did was I came up with a very simple salad, with tomato and cucumber and whatever fresh cheese we could find either at the Marché or a few times we actually went to I don't know, les fabricants, the people that made cheese.
Yes.
And we had a cooler, so we'd buy enough for like 2 days, and onion and whatever. And so we'd a picnic spot. We had picnics in some of the most amazing places, and that was what we always did for lunch and often for dinner as well. And we'd pick up bread at the local boulangerie and a bottle of wine, of course, and so that's mostly what we ate. And it never got old. It really didn't, because it was always we'd always buy fresh tomatoes and whatever at the Marché, or when we had to at the Supermarché. And it was fantastic.
Oh wow, you're making me hungry. It is dinner time where I am, so you're making me hungry. Okay, well, thank you very much, Laura, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Okay.
Au revoir.
Bon appétit.
Merci.